Hey, welcome back to Jeff's Cave of Cool Books. In my last video, I was going through my vintage science fiction paperback collection. The video was running a little long, so I decided to split it more or less in two. And what follows next is the rest of that video, the rest of my collection. Again, not my entire collection. I have some newer SF books that from newer, more recent authors that I could include, but I'm going to stick to the more vintage stuff for this particular bookshelf tour. So we'll get right back into it, and I hope you enjoy. I've heard a lot about this one on BookTube from Michael K. Vaughan and others. City by Clifford D. Simak. I'm going to try to read this one sometime in April. Been meaning to get to that one. Jack Williamson, Golden Blood, kind of a SF fantasy hybrid there. Very cool cover. Earth's Last Citadel by the power couple Henry Kuttner and C.L. Moore. Another Jack Williamson, also basically a fantasy, dark fantasy with perhaps SF overtones, darker than you think. This is fairly beat up, but and it's pretty thick too. Been meaning to get around to that one. A lot of these I haven't read yet, so lots for me to read in the future. A couple of Brian Stableford Daw editions, The Gates of Eden, and Optiman, or Optiman. Now, I have lots of collections by Isaac Asimov, but not a lot of his own science fiction. I do have The Fantastic Voyage, which is a very cool movie, but Asimov was nonplussed about the perhaps lack of scientific accuracy in that movie, and so he decided to tackle it and try to his best to rationalize the premise of shrinking humans down in a mini kind of submarine craft and entering into the bloodstream of a diplomat in a coma and going through to try to take care of hematoma in the brain of this high-level politician. It's a very fun premise, but perhaps not very scientifically accurate. So Asimov does his best to make as much scientific sense as possible. Got I don't think I have Paralandra, but I have two of the C.S. Lewis's a very interesting science fiction trilogy. I have Out of the Silent Planet there, and a different edition that I picked up. Someone left at my university just on a table, and take these books if you want them. And this is a pan edition of That Hideous Strength. Not quite as pristine as the other copy I have here, but I'll take it. Now I need to get more Zelazny. I do have a book club hardback set of his Amber novels, a two-volume set, but again, those are back in the United States. I do have this fun little kind of chapbook of really cool story by him, The Doors of His Face, The Lamps of His Mouth. Now, Zelazny is a really interesting writer. His writing style is quite dense, but it's a very cool story about, as you can see, there's a giant sea beastie, and it's about a guy who's an expert at fishing for these things, that some rich people come to this planet to, I believe it's set on Venus, to come and sail the seas of Venus and catch these giant creatures. Got a couple of Alfred Bester. This one's got a hideous rip on the front, sadly, but this is The Demolished Man. Usually when I am book shopping, I always like to get a good copy, if it, the best copy possible, but if it's the only copy I can find and it's cheap, I'm going to snag it. This one's in much better shape. The Star Is My Destination. I have the first in Julian May's series, the Golden Torque series, The Many-Colored Land. I have a good friend here that loves this series and keeps trying to push me to read it, so I'll try to get to that one day. I have a couple of Robert Silverbergs. I read this one earlier this year, and it was quite good, kind of a juvenile adventure tale, Time of the Great Freeze. Several hundred years in the future, after the Earth's cities have been buried under ice for centuries, and some young people well, I should say, some young people and some older team up together, venture out into the surface to try to establish communication. They want to make it over to London, across the frozen Atlantic, which is covered in a big sheet of ice for the most part, and try to reestablish communication and try to start the world over again. Pretty fun book. I also have The Book of Skulls, and I kind of have it over in my fantasy section, but I do have his Lord Valentine's Castle, which I've heard a lot of great things about, and I'm looking forward to getting to it one of these days. 2 copies of Theodore Sturgeon's More Human Than Human. I have this kind of odd paperback, a mass market paperback, and then I have a later trade paperback edition, which I picked up for free, again, from that same university bookshelf. Take it if you want it, bookshelf. I've heard good things about this novel as well. I want to read that at some stage. I have also Richard Matheson's classic I Am Legend, which inspired 3 movies so far. The second of which, The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, is one of my favorite 70s sci-fi flicks. Not as good as the book, of course, but pretty fun. I only have one L. Ron Hubbard, but these are very cool stories. Old Doc Methuselah, and he's visits different planets. Methuselah does. He's kind of a mysterious figure, but it's the real highlight of these is the viewpoint of his little alien servant or assistant. Hippocrates is his name. He's a very, very cool character. All right. I have quite a bit of Jack Vance on my Kindle, but and I also have his Planet of Adventure series. I don't believe I have them here with me, but I have all 4 of those back in my collection at home. I do have The Blue World, which I picked up not so long ago. I'm pretty sure Jake at Pulp Mortem reviewed this one and wasn't a huge fan, but I'm curious to check that out again. It's I'm a sucker for ocean worlds and undersea adventures. I have Joe Haldeman and Jack C. Haldeman II, There Is No Darkness. It's a little more recent one. Philip Jose Farmer, I have a couple of his. The Other Log of Phileas Fogg. I read Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne back in March. I've had this for a while. Farmer likes to play around with many different famous fictional characters and weave them together in a universe of his own making, the Wold Newton universe. This is a one-off from Farmer, The Stone God Wakens. This is a really interesting book. It's written in his kind of pulpy, very straightforward style, but it's a very cool kind of far future post-apocalyptic world novel where this guy has been cryogenically frozen, and he wakes up and he basically takes over some various beast man, animal, mutated life forms that now run the planet, and he's kind of rebuilt civilization in his own idea and becomes a god kind of in his own way. It's very interesting, kind of pulpy, post-apocalyptic adventure with a lot of fantasy and sci-fi elements. I have a collection of 7 of Wells's novels in hardback form, but this is a very cool paperback version of The First Mint in the Moon. A Captain Future novel by Brett Sterling. Now, I don't know if this is the actual writer's name. I know Manly Wade Wellman, one of my favorite authors, wrote one. Most of the Captain Future books in the Pulp magazine novels were written by Edmund Hamilton. Anyway, cool cover. Looks like Frazetta to me, but I can't quite tell for sure. It's not credited inside. Marion Zimmer Bradley, Hunters of the Red Moon, longtime favorite of mine. I've read this several times. And there was a sequel written, The Survivors, that isn't as good but still interesting. Basically, a human character is sitting on his deck of his sailboat on a moonlit night when all of a sudden some aliens come and whisk him away, capture him, and he becomes one of several other captives, including a kind of giant, powerful lizard man and several other humanoid men and women, a cat, a feline humanoid type creature, and they're basically forced to do this kind of most dangerous game where they are given a few weapons and they're sent out ahead, and then the hunters, the mysterious hunters, who are kind of shapeshifters, and come on after them to hunt them down. And if anyone survives to the end of the basically when the red moon sets, they've made it. They're survived. They're given riches and treated like royalty if they survive. Most don't, of course. Very fun book. I know Miss Bradley is a little controversial of a figure now, with some things coming out about her and especially her husband's private life, but I'll always love that novel. Then I have some A.E. Van Vogt that I picked up not so long ago. I haven't read them yet, but Destination Universe, which I believe is a short story collection. And the Best of A.E. Van Vogt. Now, this is not part of the Ballantine Best of collections. This is a pocket books collection. Probably a few stories overlapping between these two. I'm sure the Roll is in both of those. That's quite famous. And then A.E. Van Vogt's The Voyage of the Space Beagle. And Science Fiction Monsters, edited and with an introduction by Forrest J. Ackerman of Fantastic Monsters of Filmland fame. So quite a few short stories by him. I know good old Harry Harrison's come in for a kicking in some places for his Death World series, but I find these next two are pretty good. Bill the Galactic Hero, again, this is a comic novel basically, which is interesting but not my favorite, but I definitely like his Stainless Steel Rat series, and this is my favorite of those. The Stainless Steel Rat Wants You. I keep finding these stickers that I need to get rid of. Brian Stableford, The Paradise Game. Stableford wrote a bunch of these that were published by Daw. I think I have just the one. A few grab bags here, miscellaneous titles. When I was a kid, I loved the Brian Daley's Han Solo adventures. He wrote 3 of those. I think it's Han Solo at Star's End and Han Solo. What's the other one? Anyway, I have all 3 of these on Kindle, and I have them in paperback too. But this is the only one that I have with me. Quite fun for a kind of a Star Wars related book. Can't really classify that as serious science fiction, of course, but pretty inventive action set pieces in those. I don't know much about this guy, Arthur K. Barnes' Interplanetary Hunter. Has some cool illustrations inside. That was a curious one that I just decided to grab one day from the bookstore shelf, used bookstore. And then this one, I'm not a big fan of the series, but E.C. Tubbs wrote this novelization of the first episode of Space 1999, Breakaway. And, I kind of have a liking for some of these 60s and 70s TV novel tie-ins. I have a Man from Uncle 1 or 2 over here as well. Okay, let's try to whisk through these as much as possible. This, as far as I know, there was never a sequel written to this. This is quite interesting. David R. Palmer, Threshold. And I have a whole bunch of collections. Some from Isaac Asimov. Book 3 of Before the Golden Age. I'd like to get the rest of these. He introduces lots of cool Golden Age, or Before the Golden Age science fiction stories. Isaac Asimov, The Great SF Stories 23. Obviously a long series. This is from stories from 1961. Again, I'd like to get more of those. And again, I do have one more though, The Great SF Stories 9. This is from 1947, stories from 1947, at least the ones that Isaac Asimov chose as the best. I have a cool collection here, fairly recent collection by the standards of what I've been showing you. The New Space Opera, edited by Gardner Dozois and Jonathan Strahan. Again, not sure if I pronounced that correctly. And a few other interesting ones. Here's the one that's edited by Robert Silverberg, The Science Fiction Bestiary. which has stories by, again, Theodore Sturgeon and James H. Schmitz, Philip K. Dick, L. Sprague de Camp, Stanley G. Weinbaum, A Martian Odyssey, Clifford D. Simak, Paul Anderson and Gordon R. Dixon, and someone called R. Bretnor and Robert Silverberg. So he included one. Actually, I believe that is the actual story that he also included in this. One from Brian Aldiss, Perilous Planets. Almost dropped that one. Again, quite an interesting collection of stories, quite a few stories in that one. Some more collections. This one's a newer one, edited by David G. Hartwell, Year's Best SF 5. And what was the year in question? 2000, I think. So a little more recent. And again, another one, but he had some assistance editing with Catherine Kramer, Year's Best SF 12. So I guess that would be from 2007. Stories from little newer stories there. And then I think I'll finish up for now for this video with my collection of what I have so far anyway of Ballantine's best of collections, starting with these aren't going to be in order. I believe Ira at SF Words of Wonder has put these in and had a really cool video where he put them in order and also showed some of the book club editions, hardback editions. And he and Richard Rempel from Vintage SF and Matt from Science Fiction Reads have been covering these with some really entertaining videos, going through them one by one. With short stories, it's hard for me to complete a whole collection at once. I usually like to dip in and dip out, but these are really cool editions, and I'm glad to have what I have so far been able to track down. I believe I have a best of C.L. Moore back in America. I don't have it with me here, but what I do have are the best of Murray Leinster, and I have the best of Edmund Hamilton. And I started collecting some of these before I saw Ira and Richard and Matt's videos, but they certainly spurred me on to get a few more. The best of James Blish, the best of John W. Campbell, okay, and the best of, this one's kind of beat up, unfortunately, the best of Frederick Pohl, the best of Lee Brackett, the nice Vallejo cover there. And this one, sadly, was hacked and slashed, but, I'm not going to pass up one of these in the wild. The best of Jack Williamson. And then some of the ones I picked up after seeing those guys' cool videos and discussions. I grabbed the best of Eric Frank Russell this past summer, and the best of L. Sprague de Camp, and finally the best of Raymond Z. Galloon. For some reason, it has a hole punch through the cover. I don't know what they were thinking, why some bookstores do some weird things like that. I'm eagerly trying to track down some of the others in this series. I believe I have 10 or 11, and there were 21, so I have another 10 to go. Not quite halfway there, or slightly past halfway there. I have a few other more modern science fiction books, including some ones from John Scalzi and David Brin, but I think that's enough for today. I like to kind of focus on the older stuff here on this channel, at least in my overview videos like this. If you stuck through this, I'm happy that you're here still and that you decided to spend a little time with me today. So until next time, take care, enjoy whatever you're reading, and we'll see you again.